Prediction market companies like Kalshi and Polymarket emerged post-pandemic and have soared in popularity over the last year. And gaming companies are not thrilled. So today on CityCast Las Vegas, I talk with Rick Velotta, assistant business editor at the Review-Journal, and I ask him what's up with prediction markets and are they poised to destroy Las Vegas? It's Tuesday, January 27th. I'm Sonia Cho Swanson, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Okay, Rick, I've heard about these companies like Kalshi and Polymarket. What exactly is a prediction market? Maybe can you just walk us through what a user might experience going to one of these sites? So I'm typing in Kalshi on my web browser. What happens next?
Well, what you'll see is a company that kind of works like the stock market does. It's an open market where you can invest money into things that you want to predict in the future. And Kalshi is kind of the big player in this field right now. And what they did was start basically with current events and elections. That was back a couple of years ago. And then last year, towards the beginning of 2025, they were in sports outcomes. And what they would do is they ask yes or no questions about certain propositions. Will the weather be clear in New York City today? Things of that nature. And then when they get into the sports side of things, they'll ask direct questions about who is going to win a particular game. And that's what's really at issue right now.
Okay, interesting. So basically, I'm putting in, say, like $10 into a pot on this question about the weather in New York City. And everyone's got money in the pot on one side or the other of the equation, right? And then all the losers pay all the winners in the pot. And then how does Kalshi make money then?
There's a certain percentage of what goes into the pot that is kept by Kalshi, and they keep afloat by taking a piece of the action, so to speak.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so the Nevada Gaming Control Board isn't too happy about these companies. I saw that they had published a letter on January 16th saying that they're seeking an injunction against Polymarket in the state. Why is that?
Well, what they have had to do is go to the courts to get relief. And this actually started back last year in March when Kalshi first started taking some predictions from Nevada residents. And the Gaming Control Board looked at that and said, this looks a lot like sports betting, but it isn't. So they sent the cease and desist order to Kalshi right away and said, stop taking these types of propositions from Nevada unless you are licensed. And they invited them to get a license, which is a process that takes a little bit of time. So that when they did not do that, they instead decided to sue the Gaming Control Board, which they did. They sued individual members of both the Gaming Control Board and the Nevada Gaming Commission.
Wow.
So immediately now they're in court. And so when they go to the courts, what they asked the judge to do was to state, that they cannot do this. They wanted an injunction placed on them so that they would no longer be able to take the action. Well, the courts initially did not allow that to happen, so Kalshi continued to operate, and the dispute has just kind of escalated. At a certain point in time, the Nevada Resort Association realized that this was actually affecting the sports books within the casinos. So they voluntarily decided to step in and be a part of the legal action so that they too could fight against Kalshi and the prediction markets that were operating out there.
Oh, is that litigation still?
It's still pending. They had some hearings in November, and then in December, the judge in this case, it's in Nevada U.S. District Court, reversed his ruling and did put an injunction in place so that Kalshi cannot. But while a lot of Kalshi's competitors decided that they would comply with that. Kalshi did not. They decided instead that they are going to appeal to the Court of Appeals, Ninth District, and that's where things stand right now. That action is pending. And in the meanwhile, Polymarket kind of emerged as another competitor in the field. And what the control board did for that was actually file a lawsuit against Polymarket in state court so that they could have a little bit better chance of tamping it down when a time came. But right now, Kalshi is in litigation with the state.
Okay. So I just want to clarify something here because I'm trying to understand. I have not used any sports betting apps or predictions markets. So I'm trying to understand when you say place a bet on a sports betting app on, say, the outcome of, I don't know, a Vegas Golden Knights game, right?
Right.
How is that different than putting money in a pot for us, in a prediction market on the outcome of that same Vegas Golden Knights game?
Well, in many ways, it's very similar.
Okay.
It can be done in different ways. The problem, though, that the state has is that because they are not licensed and regulated by the state, they can do things that sports books cannot do. They can take action from somebody who's underage, for example.
Oh.
There are no safety rails in place for problem gambling. So if somebody gets a little overzealous in the prediction market, there's no way to really stop them and help them if they overdo. But this is something that traditional sports betting operations take very seriously, and the control board keeps an eye on them as well to make sure that they're not taking bets from people who are under 21.
Okay. So essentially right now the question is, are prediction markets the same thing as betting, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much what the question is.
That's my question. I don't know. Are they actually the same thing? Because I can imagine on the one hand, you're putting money in a pot, but it seems like there's some sort of element of chance and wagering, right? That seems like a bet to me.
They're very well. That's what the regulators say too. That's a bet. So it's something that they want to be able to control because traditionally states, and not just Nevada, but across the country, it's state regulatory bodies that oversee the gaming aspect of their casino industries in different states. So this is not just a Nevada problem. This is going on across the country.
What's the pushback from the prediction market companies? How do they say that, oh, no, we're not gambling. This is not gambling.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny because when they first started marketing themselves, they did say that they were a form of gambling. And now they've tamped back on that a little bit. But really, there's not a whole lot of difference, except that there are some states in the country that do not have legalized sports betting or wagering of any kind. Example, California. Mm-hmm. They do not have any sports betting there. Texas does not have any sports betting there. But those are pretty big markets that a number of casino companies have tried to enter.
Sure.
Well, Kalshi and those that are in the prediction market business say that they are regulated by a federal government commission. And that commission usurps anything that the states do. So therefore, they are not too worried about anything that any state might put up against them. But so they can really take some of their action any state in the country, including those that don't have anything.
I think what I'm trying to get at here is I'm trying to understand is like the way that a prediction market is set up, like the way that money kind of is put into the pot and gets moved around. Is that what kind of they are arguing, or is that what they say makes them different from traditional gambling?
Right. They say it's like an investment in the stock market.
It's so interesting you brought up this analogy of like investing in the stock market, because on some level, maybe investing in the stock market is also a form of gambling or betting too, right?
It is. It's very similar. And a lot of people have made that type of a connection. A number of scholars in universities and stuff, they will look at this and say, it's just a different type of betting. You're betting on whether a company is going to be successful or not. And so that's how they legitimize it, I guess, by saying that this is just basically an investment in something that you're predicting. And the thing that's been pretty remarkable is that these prediction markets, the people who are out there publicly making these predictions or weighing in on these predictions have been astoundingly accurate. Recently, they were kind of predicting that the whole Venezuela Maduro thing was going to occur.
Wow.
So there are a lot of smart people out there who recognize that current events that people have some insights on, and therefore they feel like they're qualified to make an investment in such a thing. And then when it does happen one way or the other, they kind of prop themselves up saying, see, we're legitimate. We've got a lot of followers who are accurate in what they say, and this will help people in the long run make decisions about how they invest their money.
Wow. That's so interesting. I saw that the Golden Globes actually had Polymarket predictions, live Polymarket predictions up on the screen while they were screening the Golden Globes. And then afterwards, apparently, I think it was the CEO of Polymarket came out and said, look, our markets accurately predicted 26 out of the 28 winners of the Golden Globes.
That's right. And they're very proud of that fact that they are able to get ahead of some of these things. And that's really what keeps them in the game, so to speak, because they're kind of a go-to source. We've written stories at the RJ about things that are going on in current events, and we will reference things like groups like Kalshi and Polymarket to say this might happen. And one of those areas is in elections, which that's a whole new ball game because betting on elections in the state of Nevada is against our Constitution. So,
right. I suppose that if there's a financial incentive for the outcome of an election, there could be more incentive to tamper with or sway voters a certain way, and that's we don't want that kind of interference with our election process.
Well, if people have an indication from a prediction market that X candidate is going to win, then then you're right. Then money might come forward to support the other candidate, or people might just completely back off of it and not do anything, which is kind of defeats the purpose of what the election is about.
You mentioned that Polymarket and Kalshi, for example, don't necessarily have age limits for people who can place bets. Nevada is kind of famously strict when it comes to gambling, despite our reputation for loose morals and wild times. I'm curious, what other kinds of guardrails are Polymarket and Kalshi bypassing by not being, quote unquote, counted as gambling here?
Well, there really are not that many. It's just that I think that the control board and regulators and gaming groups across the country are just wary of the fact that they could have an influence in day-to-day things and certainly in predicting the outcomes of sports events. One of the things that Kalshi and some of these other companies have done that it's something that they didn't do before is put out parlay events. And parlay betting is when you actually have multiple propositions in front of you, and all of them have to come true in order for the bet to be won. For example, if I wanted to bet on the Broncos this week and the Seahawks this week, I could do that in one bet, and the payoff is that it's a greater reward if you are successful in your parlay.
Okay.
Well, for a long time, the Kalshis and Polymarkets of the world didn't have something like that, but they have developed a product that is, in essence, very much like a parlay bet. What's interesting about that, I think, is that because Kalshi and Polymarket and those types take predictions on current events and pop culture as well as sporting events, there might be an opportunity at some point for parlays involving, like, for example, if I bet on the Broncos to win this weekend and whether it's going to reach 60 degrees in New York City by April 1st, then I could bet that. And you can't do that in the traditional betting markets in the States. They don't allow for those types of wagers to be made. So in essence, that gives Kalshi and Polymarket something that the betting groups do not have.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder too, because gaming companies theoretically have more skin in the game when it comes to gambling in the state of Nevada. I mean, they could lose, they have to pay out to the winners. So even though the house always wins in Nevada, I wonder if it's more like the prediction market companies. Those companies never lose, right? They take their cut and they never really have to pay out massive winnings to anyone.
Yeah, both traditional sports books and the prediction markets kind of operate in the same way in that they gauge how much they need to get on one side or the other in order to be profitable, as well as to balance the action between the two sides. So what that means is that if, for example, there's a point differential in the betting for a football game. If it looks like there's a lot of money coming in on one side, they'll change the odds so that the other side gets a little bit more action to try to keep that balance. As close as, if they can keep it balanced so that there's money coming in on both sides equally, then they don't risk losing a big chunk if an upset occurs. So that's something that sportsbooks are really good at, and Kalshi is getting better and better at that as well by changing the parameters of what the investment is. So, for example, you might want to bet, if you're talking about Kalshi, if you're putting in $1, it might be a return of $7 if you're right, and $3 you lose if you're wrong. But that can change as money comes in on one side or the other.
So you mentioned that Kalshi's in litigation in Nevada right now. If Kalshi and companies like Kalshi prevail, how could this impact the Las Vegas economy?
Well, it certainly opens up competition in taking wagers on certain sports events. One of the things that I think is very interesting in terms of what happens next is that Mike Dreitzer, who is the chair of the Nevada Gaming Control Board, is known as being very progressive on new things and finding ways to make Nevada gaming a better product. And one of the things that he has said is that, maybe there is room at some point for a Kalshi-like prediction market to be in operation in Nevada, but they need to be licensed, and that's the big holding back, is the fact that they're not licensed. So he at least acknowledges the idea that Kalshi does have some things that might be worthwhile to implement in the state of Nevada, but whether that comes about as a result of this litigation or not, it's kind of hard to say. We're going to have to wait and see what happens at the appeals level, and then see what happens in U.S. District Court regarding whether or not the state is right or whether Kalshi and other prediction markets are right.
Now, is Kalshi currently being taxed in the state of Nevada?
Yeah, that's another big rub, is that the state does not get its 6.75% gaming tax. That's kind of an automatic. They're audited. Each company is audited to make sure that they are each contributing their 6.75%, and that's even a bigger percentage in other states. We have actually one of the lowest gaming taxes in the country, and the fact that Kalshi does not pay any taxes to the state is another rub that the state people have a problem with. Is the fact that they are not collecting anything from Kalshi and other prediction markets as they do from traditional sports books.
Right, right. And I mean, especially as this market grows, right? I mean, it looks like these companies are projected to hit into the hundreds of billions, if not more, over the next, few years. So
there was a report that came out recently that has the potential to become $1 trillion industry, which,
whew.
I mean, I can't even fathom how many zeros that is, but it's huge in terms of how big this market could become. And obviously, if there are more people who are doing things with prediction markets, that might incline them to do less as far as sports betting. And that would be detrimental to our industry here in the state of Nevada.
Well, Rick, thank you for this insightful conversation. We'll be following the news of this litigation and the growth of this market in the coming weeks and months.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
All right, and that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. Don't forget you can support this show and get some great perks by becoming a CityCast Las Vegas neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Take care.